Coming up on Oily Trash Movies. Oh my goodness. Ah! Oh man, that got me.
Oh my gosh, they're actually underwater?
And we're live. Hello. And welcome to Oily Trash Movies, the only podcast where two people watch a movie and say unfunny things the entire time. We're your hosts. I'm a Daddy WarBux.
And I'm Bublegum Barbie.
And today we're going to be watching The Deep House. I'm super excited about this. This might be a bit more mainstream than some of the movies we've done, but I'm still excited. Last week, before we get into this, we did watch last week American Cherry, which is a terrible film that was picked out by Bublegum Barbie. Look, I'm still groggy from my nap. Or actually, I didn't get a nap today, so I'm groggy from that.
Neither did I. I'm like super groggy. It's been a very productive day for me. I was able to do my class and chores, and I'm tired.
You got to spank a dog.
Yeah. Dritz, he is a horrible, horrible troublemaker. He jumped out my window of a moving car. Yes, indeed, he did. And thank goodness I was going like granny speed, which is probably why he jumped out, because I was going super slow as I was turning. And he jumped out. They had to like chase him to get him back. Scary stuff.
Well, I'm glad he made it. I'm glad there were no accidents. It sounds like your dog is a big Tom Cruise fan.
He is.
He was inspired by the latest Mission Impossible film.
Yeah.
Okay, so American Cherry. We hated it. I've been thinking a lot about that movie because I'm just trying to figure it out. I'm sort of bewildered. You know, the initial problem is that it stars teenagers. Nobody cares about teenagers. And to all the teenagers listening to this because you saw a thumbnail with a hot chick on it and you clicked on it, I'm sorry, but your lives and your problems aren't that interesting. The only time a movie that stars kids or teenagers is good is when it's a coming-of-age story. And the story is the transformation from childhood to adulthood, from a boy into a man or a girl into a woman. Those are great stories. That's something all of us real adults have gone through. But this, and you know what? And then I was thinking, I just couldn't get it out of my head, Kafka's The Metamorphosis. The scene in the beginning, studying The Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka. It's like, okay, this is like the perfect metaphor for a transformation, a literal metamorphosis, if you'll take the title of the book literally. You could have easily had it be the metamorphosis from a young, troubled teen into a functional adult. But no, there wasn't any metamorphosis. There was no transformation. It was just a kid that was crazy and evil just because he was crazy and evil. And none of the characters were dynamic.
Well, I'm going to prove you wrong about the teenagers.
Prove me wrong.
Teenagers, if you're listening,
you suck.
Don't listen to Daddy WarBux. Because I saw this incredible movie that was called Aliens vs. Kids. And that was just literal kids just going against aliens.
That was also a coming-of-age story, Bubble. The kids overcame their fears and childhood terrors of the aliens and became adults and killed the aliens.
Wrong. They literally were being kids, and they became superheroes by saving the human race by the aliens, which I recommend everybody to go watch.
That's a great movie. We should have done that as an episode. I really regret that we didn't.
I mean, we could still do it. We could do another Jurassic Games and watch it and review it. So if you want to do that, I'll just cut the whole review of Kids versus Aliens. Anyway, so American Cherry.
Yeah.
Gosh, I hated it. I wanted to like it. It was like my type of niche. It was a thriller where it has psychology into it. It's like my kind of mystery and all that stuff, right? Also, on top of that, romance. So I was like, I want to watch this movie. And the fact that I won so many rewards, I was like, this is going to be great. This is going to be a diamond in the rough.
Yeah, that's what I was hoping for.
Right, and it wasn't at all. Simply because of the awards. It's just like Manfish has so many awards, and I didn't like it that much. Although I loved the humor, although I loved the creature, there's just something that just didn't really stick with me that I didn't like much. I can't really pinpoint it much. I think it was just because the character wasn't really likable in Manfish, and it seemed that there was no redeeming quality, as we always talk about. American Cherry was the same way. I think the same thing. There was no redeeming quality with any of the characters. It was just a main lead who was just dealing with anger issues and solved it in a very non-rewarding way. And our secondary lead didn't, like, it was just end at a cliff note. Like, it was like, oh yeah, no, she's just crying in this, she just lost her mom and her boyfriend, and now she's just crying in this abandoned farm, or whatever that thing is called. What are those things called? Do you know?
What was it? Oh, the barn? The abandoned
barn? Yes.
Yes.
She just ended up crying in an abandoned farm, and that's all we saw, and that was the end of the movie. Cut to black. We have seen oilier movies with better endings.
You were saying you wouldn't like it, and I'm basically coming into the same thing. It's really interesting that the movies we've gone in expecting to be good have almost always let us down, whereas some of the movies that we expected to hate coming in ended up blowing us away and were legitimate works of art. And this movie sort of continued that trend. We both disliked it, despite it having a total of almost 50 awards and nominations. I think it had 25 awards and 24 nominations. And all that tells me is that the director has a lot of friends.
Right, possibly. And, you know, another thing that, how I felt about American Cherry was that it was American Beauty knockoff, just like the Grim Cuddy. It was kind of like a copycat, but our lead was a boyfriend who was camcording the bag, and there's so much beauty in the world or whatever, but it didn't give it justice, and it was like the ugly cousin that you hide in the basement and hope that no one realizes that you have that cousin hiding in the basement in your house.
Well, I'm really glad that I'm not in your family, Bubble, because it sounds pretty awful if you keep your uglier cousins in the basement so that nobody can ever see them. It sounds awful, but I'm glad you brought that up. This movie
like
really
that.
did feel like a knockoff of American Beauty. The only other thing I can say is that because this felt like a teenage-oriented movie, and it was written and directed by someone very recently out of directorial school or whatever you major in to make movies, and
Art school.
there was a movie called Brick starring Joseph Gordon-Levitt, which I always see people go on and on and on about, or at least lately, or like at least 10 years ago. I used to see this when the movie came out, and I watched it. I'm like, oh, this is shit. The dialogue is shit. Nothing's believable. Everybody's terrible, and they're all cardboard cutout characters that are written by somebody who thinks they're being profound and interesting. But a lot of people liked it because they were young kids. It was, to sort of tell our age here, it was like the Donnie Darko of our generation, Bubble. It was Brick, was that movie. So if you liked Brick, or if you like Donnie Darko still, you'll probably like American Cherry. It really does have a veneer of depth to it that I think will appeal to a young fan of movies, in which case, please go check it out. And then as you age and grow, you'll check out better movies like Jurassic Games, and you'll say, oh, those oily trash movies guys were right all along.
So are you saying like this movie is like Twilight?
No, wrong. Nobody ever said Twilight was deep, is the difference.
I guess you're right. Like, you're right. I think it would appeal to a lot of teenagers, specifically, like, the subreddit. It feels like the subreddit or Reddit of I am 14 and this is deep kind of film.
That's perfect.
So if you're into I Am 14 and this is deep, this movie's for you. If you're a psychologist, I recommend this movie. And that's it. That's all I have to say. It sucked. I hated it.
Thank you. Yeah, don't watch it.
Don't watch it. Unless
The Deep House. Coming up. All right, we've talked way too. We're already 15 minutes in. And
You're the one who talked about all that. You kept interrupting me. You'll see.
I know. All right. Well, cut all of it. Cut 90% of that. The Deep House. This is actually a Universal film, which I didn't know until I opened it up to see if it had subtitles for our hearing impaired viewers and Bubble. And this is actually one of those movies that at some point, some girl that I was talking with somewhere, Tinder, Bumble, Snapchat, she was watching this movie. So this is kind of a mainstream movie. It might still be oily trash. For instance, Jeepers Creepers was a pretty well-known, heavily marketed film that had a wide audience, and it was the worst movie we've seen yet. So this might be like that, or it might be good. It seems... what do we know about this movie, Bubble?
So the directors are Alexandra Bustillo and Julian Murray. And the writers are the same directors. And we have Rachel Parker as a writer. So we have 3 writers in this. And actors we don't know anything about. And let's see. So the description of it is while driving in the remote French
Hold on, start over. You've already fucked up. You missed the second word, which is the most important, relevant word to this movie.
What?
Start again.
While driving in a remote...
Okay, all right. I'm gonna read this.
Diving! While diving in the deep blue sea in a remote French lake, a couple who specialize in urban exploration videos discover a house submerged in the deep waters. Their dive turns into a nightmare when they discover the house was a scene of atrocious crimes.
Very atrocious crimes. Yeah, I'm more pumped now than I was when I first downloaded this. I'm so excited to watch it. I mean, the premise is everything's underwater, which is super spooky and dark. We've all seen The Descent.
Yes.
I'm a huge fan of 2006's The Cave, which is kind of a campy B movie. I would love to watch that for a bonus episode. But anything that has underwater diving into caves is super scary because it hits both claustrophobia, fear of the dark, and also fear of drowning, which is... I mean, nobody wants to drown.
I have all of those.
Yeah, we all have that.
I have all those.
Now imagine being in the dark in a cramped space while drowning. Horrifying. Literally horrifying. But then also, this is about a people who make urban exploration videos. So it's also what I like where, it's people documenting and speaking into the camera and having that kind of footage, which I'm a sucker for. I always love that.
So I do want to disclose, this is going to be our first, besides Jeepers Creepers, in a very long time, our $1 billion budget. Oh wait, that's how much they made. It doesn't say that, never mind, cut what I said. It doesn't say the budget.
Okay. Well,
it made $1 billion.
First of all, this movie did not make $1 billion. It made $1 million. There's only like 4 movies that have made $1 billion, and they're all made by James Cameron or Disney.
Oh, I guess you're right. Well, it has.
All right.
What's 2 commas? So what's 2 commas?
That's $1 million. This movie made $1 million.
$1 million.
Probably lost money. All right, are we ready? People don't care about this. We're bad at math. All right, 3, 2, 1, and go. XYZ. That's the one who copyright struck us on Jeepers Creepers, I think.
Oh my gosh. They're the ones who give us our first copy strike. Oh, by the way, to our 1,000 viewers, daily listeners, we ended up beating a really big studio, and we won.
That's right. We got a copyright strike from... Should we say it? Can we talk about this?
No, I don't. We shouldn't say it.
Technically, the court case is over. There's double jeopardy. They can't sue us again for the same thing.
Right. But I wouldn't want to...
It was Studio Ghibli. We had clips of Hal's moving castle in a video we produced.
Go see it. I'm already hating this. Like, okay, you know what? I take back what I was gonna say, because I was gonna say it looks like shit, but they literally used the footage of the two actors filming themselves.
Yeah, this is literally the beginning of Cabin Girl, which you also said you hated. Damn, that house looks way better than the cabin, though. Oh, beautiful drone shots. I love this building. It's probably like an old abandoned asylum.
Oh, look at all that, like, extraordinary graffiti.
Yeah, this is probably a real location, and all that graffiti has already existed, I'm imagining.
I'm gonna wait for the Blair Witch shot. Can't wait for that shot.
Where they pointed at themselves and...
Yeah, and there's snot all over their nose.
Gross. Is Manfish in there? Okay, so she's a diver, and she's practicing holding her breath.
She taking a shit? She is.
Oh my god, the Deep House, that's the name of the movie.
The Deep House is drowning. Oh my god.
Hello and welcome to Oily Trash Towns. We're in southwest France.
We have 1,050 daily viewers, but their houses are for sale.
But I can't understand the French, and there's no French subtitles.
She's just saying it for French aesthetic. The boyfriend obviously doesn't understand French. Let's have a French actress just randomly saying the same lines as she said in English in French.
Hold on, I'm more caught up about this guy being pissed that he only got 50,000 views. You know what? Oily Trash Movies crossed 10,000 total views recently. Big success. Big milestone. And these guys... These French people in France eating their French fries, they have no appreciation.
I know, we get so excited. Cabin Girl did the same thing. She's like, I remember when I had my first 10 likes. It's like, you know what? We are excited when we have 5 likes.
And you know what? Even when we're super famous and we've built the Tower of Babel, we're still gonna care about every 5 likes we get.
Hell yeah.
Damn, this is gorgeous.
Yeah, this is my vibe. I could feel the mosquitoes, though.
There's no mosquitoes in France, Bubble.
Wrong! They're called French mosquitoes.
Why, do you think they're snakes?
Yes, there's snakes everywhere in the forest.
There's no snakes in France, Bubble.
Yeah, they're called French snakes.
I can't understand.
She went wee. I just got cancelled in France. Where's Aunt Mom? Invite Aunt Mom so she could tell us what they're saying.
Once we reach our first 1 million views, we're going straight to the littlest chapel in Vegas.
Now, once we meet our 1 million views, we're gonna sit in the Tower of Babel
with all of our Raid Shadow Legend money.
Yeah. I'm already getting anxiety.
A Rover P6 even.
Hey, they literally did take a drive in a remote lake. Oh, well, that was a great joke. I can't believe you didn't laugh.
I didn't get it.
Because you kept saying during the introduction they took a drive in a remote lake. I'm like, no, you fucked up the second word.
Oh, yeah. See, I knew it. I knew that they were going to take a drive in the remote lake. Gosh, this movie sucks. I hate the characters, and I hate the writing. I hate the dialogue.
Oh yeah, that's because half the dialogue is in France.
No, but literally, like, when they're speaking to each other, it just doesn't make sense. It's not something that 2 people would actually have a conversation. Like, they're literally, it's like the writers don't know how human conversation happens.
What's more impressive is that he also has an underwater drone, which seems a bit out of the price point.
Yeah. Look at that shark. Did you see it? That was cute.
I think that was like a carp.
No, it's a shark.
There's no sharks in France.
Oh, wrong! It's called a shark. Stop it.
Dude, this is awesome.
I hate this movie.
No, he just said God is watching us, and then he floats up like Jesus on the cross.
Well, yeah, visually that was great, but the dialogue sucked.
How do you know? You don't speak France.
He like knocked, hoping that someone would open the door. Hello?
Who's there?
It's what's the fish? The fish man?
Cthulhu? Would you like to hear about our Lord and Savior, Cthulhu? What if there's ichthyoids living in this?
Ichthyoids. Yeah. Like what? I'm taking a nap here.
Who dares disturb my eternal slumber?
Ooh, they're gonna break an entry.
Oh my goodness. Ah! Oh man, that got me.
That got me too. I literally jumped. I flinched. I like almost turned off my computer. I screamed so loud.
Oh my goodness. Look at all the flotsam and jetsam and detritus and other big words for shit floating in the water.
Wrong. Not in France. That doesn't exist in France.
What if the entire movie takes place in here now?
I think it will.
I was originally expecting that they would go up and like talk about it and then go back and like there would be the scene where they would leave and go to the local library and find the story on microfilm.
I mean, possibly. Like, I think that might happen because the reason why they'll go down there not only because of the story they found, but because they got 1 million views on their video. Oh my gosh, a floating candlestick. It's the ghost. It's a little, what are those called? A plankton.
There's no plankton in France, Bubble.
Aunt Mom would Aunt Mom is the kind of person who would do this in her kitchen. She probably has like a life-size Jesus. This isn't scary, guys.
Jesus is there to keep the demons locked inside.
Oh my gosh. They just unlocked the ichthyoids.
That would be better than a ghost at this point.
I can't believe they opened that cursed door. Like Jesus was there to protect the village.
Oh my god, it's a secret murder basement.
Oh my gosh, it's the room where you put your ugly cousins.
What the fuck is that?
Doll.
Well, there's the dead bodies.
I mean, it could be Barbie dolls.
Like, the hair isn't even moving in the water. It's so bizarre. Human viscera.
He was a mad scientist.
Jesus.
Close the door.
Put Jesus back up. Come on, what are you doing? The ghosts are gonna escape.
I know, right?
Oh my god, there's a fucking brick wall!
Ah!
Oh, it's so ludicrous. Oh
my
my god.
God.
What she needs is to use the ASMR from Grimcuddy to calm down and get her breathing under control.
That one guy literally trapped them there.
Yeah, Pierre built the brick wall after they went in.
Yeah. Follow the fish. Figure out where those fish are coming in from. Oh my gosh. It's a ghost fish.
Oh, is that Tom? Is he evil now?
No, I think it was the droid or the camera.
Yeah, Tom.
Oh, the camera. Oh yeah, Tom. Yeah, you're right. The camera Tom is the ghost now. He got possessed by the ghost. Dead now? This is not scary because you can't tell what's going on.
I know, that's... And I think they intentionally put music that didn't properly juxtapose just because they knew that this scene didn't work out as well as they thought it would.
Thumbnail material.
Well, her hair moves now. Remember how it was...
Yes.
She was like the doll before?
Yeah. Didn't move any.
Ah! Quick, you gotta put Jesus back in place.
I know. Start saying your Holy Marys. Oh my gosh, they're gonna ignore Jesus again.
Idiots. This movie's an allegory for how Christ is the solution to all of your problems.
Yes. Put Jesus back.
Why did they wait for them to get so close?
I know, right?
This is pretty bad.
Yeah, this is a bad movie. I'm telling you.
This needs to be more cramped. Chimneys aren't that big. And even if they were that big, it needs to be more cramped for tension.
It's like these directors didn't even didn't even see one YouTube video of guys spelunking.
I like how she cut the rope holding her and then she fell as though she weren't underwater.
I know, right?
God, this feels like every other we're recording videos in a haunted place movie. I'm afraid I can't let you do that, Tina. Oh my god, this is so scary.
I know. Those feet.
Yeah, I know, she's not wearing any socks. How horrifying.
This movie is not scary for some reason. I am not scared.
Bubble, you literally shit your pants when a fish flew out of the window.
That was the scariest part, was the fish.
I mean, this is kind of scary. Look, this is like the scene from Jurassic Park with the velociraptors.
I mean, granted, that was scarier, but this is pretty scary.
I feel like I could take that ghost bitch, honestly. I'd come out with my knife.
That looked like a whole different ghost, by the way. Like,
It did, suddenly.
like dark hair, younger. Well, the ghost we saw was
Hotter.
yeah. While the ghost,
Skinnier.
yep, right. While the ghost was a mom and she was blonde.
Like, this Tom going evil like he's HOW 9000, this is not working for me at all.
I know, right? It's because he's haunted by the ghost.
First of all, those ghosts are boomers. They wouldn't know how to work technology.
That's true. They wouldn't know how to possess a Tom.
Yeah, like, they've got rotary phones in that house.
She knows your fears.
Wow, this is such trait bullshit.
I don't like this movie. I think I hate it as much as I hate Jurassic Park. No. As much as Jeepers Creepers Reborn.
This is way better than Jeepers Creepers Reborn. It's better than Spare Parts.
Yeah, I guess you're right. It is interesting. Visually, but so was Spare Parts. Visually, it was nice to look at. Besides the red and blue lights.
There was nothing but red and blue lights in Spare Parts. That's why it was so horrible. It made your eyes bleed. I believe the word I used about 20 times in that review was garish. Alright, so are we in the third act now? Is this...
Yeah, I guess so.
where we find out all the answers and it's unsatisfying? He's like, come on, Tina, let's just have a drink.
Watch this movie.
Yeah, watch this oily trash movie.
Pierre? They would kidnap kids from the neighboring farms and sacrifice them.
That's like a 40-year-old man they're killing with a beard.
Trap, darling.
He's not being possessed by being stabbed.
Well, he's gonna be possessed even less now. Oh my god, it's evil Tom blocking her escape.
Take a huge breath. Stop panicking. You've been practicing in the hot tub.
Hi, that's right. We're gonna come back to this where she has to hold her breath now.
This is the scariest shot of the entire movie.
It's a pretty deep house. She's not gonna make
not
it.
gonna make it.
Boo! I hate movies where everybody dies. It's like, what's the point?
Oh, she's just naturally gonna float.
And she's doing the Jesus pose now.
I didn't like that movie. I give this already 8 buckets of oil. Like, why does Pierre do it? Like, what does he get out of it? Nothing.
Yeah, so what? They're like, do the ghosts go back now and put themselves in the chain so that the next divers can find them in that exact same position? Is that what happens? Does Pierre know that his family at the bottom of this river is killing people as ghosts? Like, none of this makes sense.
Apparently.
This is a movie with a great premise. It has all of the elements for horror, but the script wasn't there. The scenes of tension, I don't even know how you do it. I think what you need is there has to be like one room in the house that has air that like they make it back to, and it's like their safe spot. And then your characters are in danger some of the time, and then they can go back and like, all right, we're safe here. Now we have to go figure out what was below that fake door that we found. Or you have a series of increasingly dangerous underwater stunts. And I'm just basing this off all the other great underwater movies I've seen, such as The Descent and Cave, where you have like, so the closest I could see in this movie was when they're climbing up the chimney and the rubble starts falling on them, which, one, that chimney did not feel cramped and claustrophobic at all. Two, it makes no sense for them to be climbing up a chimney and random shit starts falling on them. Three, they sent Tom the robot up first. Like, none of the pieces fit together. The robot was completely pointless in this movie. It should not have been included. I don't know. Bubble, you go first. You hated this movie, right?
I hated this movie. 8 buckets of oil. I hated it. The robot existed because they bought the robot or rented it and they wanted to incorporate it. That's the only reason why this robot existed. I hated the script. I hated the dialogue. And because the dialogue sucked, the story sucked. I agree with you. The concept is there. The idea of horror is there. I liked the ghost. I liked the bodies, the mannequins, and the perfectly preserved ghost. I liked that, but I hated everything else. The way I believe that you would fix this movie is, I said, they should go back to the surface and then want to go back for more details. And then when they go back, they start discovering like all this like stories of the house, and it's like all these folklore stories, backstory, the people who live there, and then these characters will obviously go back because they got 1 million views on their YouTube channel. And they're willing to do it. Like, actual real life YouTubers are willing to go into cemeteries at 3 o'clock in the morning for content. There's YouTubers who are literally willing to get arrested for content. So I would believe that concept. The dialogue was unreal. It was annoying. I hated the male character where he would be like, "Oh, there was a silhouette. Did you see that?" She's like, "No. You're seeing things, you're delusional." And then this whole piano series, it's like, oh no, there's no way that this place is not haunted. There's being like reasonable when earlier he was so sure there was a person sitting on that thing. It was annoying. I hated it. I hated that there were some things that were floating, but other things weren't moving around or floating.
Yeah, they're both hanging on to this piano while it floats and it's not moving.
I mean, I see it. It's like a stage set, which is a very cool set.
So we seem to both feel like they need to be out of danger, which would be. I had suggested like a part that's filled with air in the house, which is obviously impossible. But maybe they could be, so that they're not actually leaving and going home. Maybe they had to take a boat out into the middle of this huge lake, right? And they come back up to the surface where their boat is. So they're still isolated, and then they keep deciding to go back down to the house and discover a little bit more, get a little bit more footage, and then discover a little bit more with that new footage, and you sort of build on it that way. Or maybe even, let's say they had a hike to like up some mountain to the lake, and they have like a camp set up, and they return to the camp so that they're still, they're not safe, but they're out of danger. And then you have that undulating, dangerous underwater scenes. Okay, we're safe. We can catch our breath up on the surface. And the audience can catch their breath. And then you have another intense, very scary, suspenseful scene underwater where, they go, and this time and something collapses and pins one of them, and they have to find a pry bar to lift up this really heavy brick archway that collapsed on one of their legs. Or, you had the lady, Tina, she got her fin impaled on a branch as they were going down. You could have something like that. And you just keep pushing it. And all the way up to your final scene where, they don't make it up to the surface.
Right. One thing that really bugged me is the whole Pierre character. I don't understand why he's taking them under this house. What does he get out of it? That was annoying. Like, he's just trapping people in there? For what? Because they used to, back in the day, sacrifice, what was it, fostered children? These are not fostered children. What's the point? What's the point of everything? How does he know that his parents are out there murdering people in this house? And then what's the point of murdering them? What do they get out of it? Like, what does the house stay preserved? Like, do their bodies stay preserved because they have all these new bodies and they consume them?
What it should be is the dead people should be trying to get revenge on those who killed them. And if it's like Pierre is leading then the next generation of all those farmers' kids to this place, that might make more sense. But it's like they knew all of the components that should be in a scary sort of ghost movie, and they threw them all in this movie, but they didn't put any thought to how all of those pieces should fit together.
Right. Yeah, Cabin Girl was more of a scary movie than this was for me. I'm claustrophobic, and I really didn't get that with this much. I would have, like, I got it more with Cryo when they were in that cramp area for that moment, right before, like, when he got electrocuted. That felt more intense than this did. It felt more eerie than this one did. The whole chain thing was stupid and weird and unscary. Like, it's just a scene that didn't really work, that they had to put some bubblegum pop music in order for it to feel like they were trying to do like a Jeepers Creepers, with old music and something scary is happening. The set was cool though. The camera work was cool. The actors, I really didn't like the male much. The female wasn't that great either, but their chemistry was fine. I mean, they're just French people, and French people are kind of like boring and polite anyway, so.
Yeah, but French people are known for being rude and snotty. What do you mean?
Well, whatever, I guess. Like, I guess they were perfect French people.
Here's what we needed. When they're holding up the film, he should have held it to the light, and you could just barely see that something was going on, and you're like, what the fuck? But
yeah, like the sacrifices.
That's what we needed there.
Yeah.
The fact that they're doing this as some sort of satanic cult thing that feels like a cop-out. Because again, we're talking about people who are being evil just for the sake of being evil. Right. And when he opens up that door and there's all of like the parts preserved in formaldehyde, I think it'd be way more interesting if this is somebody who is killing people, but just because he's like studying them, like a mad scientist sort of, where he's learning. Because if you're sacrificing people to a satanic cult, why are you preserving their organs then in formaldehyde? Like, again, it's like they have all the parts of a bunch of different horror movies, but they didn't think about how they go together.
Right. That's obvious. I mean, you could tell that that's obvious what these both directors were trying to do. They're like, oh, I've seen like 1,000 movies and this is what's going to scare people. But the dialogue didn't make sense. It's not a conversation that two people would actually have. It's not a situation that would actually happen. This backstory doesn't really make sense. Like, our bad guys, the reason why it's not scary is because we don't believe our bad guys. There's no motive, really. It's just stupid, I guess. Oh, you just come to my haunted house and live here forever.
Well, I think the ghosts, they rushed it too fast with the ghosts, and they sort of tempered it by having her see the ghost, and then the ghost wasn't there, and it's like, okay, she's just going crazy. I think you draw it out where the threats at first come from them being underwater in this dilapidated building that's, bricks are falling in the chimney, it's collapsing on them, it's dangerous, it's dark, it's cramped, and then there's spooky, weird shit in the house because there were murders.
You know what would be spooky and weird?
What?
Like, they enter into a room and there's candles that are just magically lit. And it's like...
No, because...
How does that work?
I'm saying, like, the supernatural stuff should have been not introduced until the very third act when...
Yeah.
When the writers ran out of ideas.
Right.
And even then, it should have been them when they're like running out of oxygen, and then you have a little bit of ambiguity. You could be like, okay, were there really ghosts, or were they just, I, I don't know the term, but when you run out of oxygen, you do go into like a state of almost like an opiate high, I believe, and or like narcosis, some sort of narcosis. And then you could be like, well, were there actually ghosts, or were they just suffering because they didn't have enough oxygen in their brains? And then that's scary. That's where your fear comes from.
Yeah. Another flaw that I think failed as well with this movie is that the fact that they kept saying they're running out of oxygen, and we knew that from going in, like you mentioned it, she is at 48%. And I feel like our characters didn't really prioritize that enough. And if they're divers, they would prioritize that. So going into this house and like really being ultra ultra focused on their oxygen would have been better. Like, hey, we are at 15%. We need to figure something out to get out of here. And their main focus was obviously like trying to escape, making up a plan. I hated that the main character kept having panic attacks and was just using up all her oxygen the entire time. And I think already there's a flaw, the fact that her oxygen lasted as long as it did, which she kept hyperventilating. She would have already used so much within the time frame that she had. Essentially, if she had 45%, she would have been dropping down way faster simply because of all the hyperventilating panic attacks she kept having.
Well, it's also it's way less scary when it's like, oh, they've been running out of oxygen since they made the dive in the first act.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, you can't stretch 80 minutes of we're running out of oxygen because you know, like,
Right.
obviously the oxygen is not going to run out to the end. And that's why they need to come up and surface several times throughout this movie
Right.
and replenish their oxygen. So, like, the first time they go down there, maybe they're like, ah, we're at 20%, we gotta go. And he's like, ah, but there's so much great footage. And it's like, no,
We'll come back.
calmer minds prevail. We're running low on oxygen, so they come back up. And then the next time, maybe something falls on them, like a timber or a barn beam from the roof, and it pins them, and they don't get out, and they're at like 9% oxygen when they get free, and they start swimming to the top. And then the final scene, you can have that ticking clock where 5%, 4%, 3%, and shits, and then the monsters are attacking them. Suspense. Create the suspense. Create the tension.
Yep. And the script and the even the movie making and all the effects like really failed to build that suspense. Although they had good jump scares, they had good ghosts, they had good concepts, but it just did not fail. It did not succeed. I hated this movie. This is like my third lowest movie.
I think you're being too hard on it. This movie really did have 80% of the ingredients. It had 80% of the recipe complete.
I'm not being harsh because
You gave this 8 buckets of oil.
yes, this is 8 buckets of this. I hated this movie. What's that movie that the dance scary movie was far scarier. Like I'm gonna forget this movie and like after we're done recording this, like it's not gonna even daze me. Where that movie where the dancers,
Oh, Suspiria.
Suspiria was haunting me for like 2 weeks.
Okay, well that's one of the greatest horror movies
Exactly.
ever.
That's a great horror movie. And this is the reason why I'm so upset because this is something I would have been terrified. I am claustrophobic in real life. Spelunking
Yeah, claustrophobic.
Yes, I am terrified of these concepts. Like I felt it for a moment when she like hit the brick wall and she's like, oh my gosh, we can't get out. I felt it for that millisecond, that feeling of, oh my gosh, we're trapped.
That was the most ridiculous part in this movie.
It was so ridiculous, but I felt it for the first time for a second. And then I was like, that's stupid.
Okay.
That's stupid. Because it's like, who built that? It's just a stupid idea. It's crazy. It's bonkers. Like, the ghost, it's a ghost brick. You could still go through it. Like, it doesn't make sense. And then another thing that really bugged me was the first jump scare, which was a fish. It was a ginormous fish that wouldn't fit through this one opening that they were like, oh, this is how the fish got in. That big fish wouldn't have fit through there.
Okay, you're picking the nits now.
Yes, I am picking the nits because I'm annoyed. This would have been scary for me. It's dark, it's spooky, but it wasn't spooky. This is as bad as Jeepers Creepers.
This was way better than Jeepers Creepers. I almost want to give this like a flat 0.
Okay.
I think this is better than, say, Death Valley. I'm giving this a 0. I wouldn't call this oily, but it certainly wasn't good. But I was into it. I wanted to see what they would do, and I was continually disappointed in what they did, but the premise was so good, I kept wanting to see what's going to be the next thing that they find in this house. What's going to be the next thing?
It succeeded on its concept, but it failed on its execution. It's two big things in filmmaking that you just cannot do, and that's why I'm so angry, and I don't like this movie.
All right, well, I guess another one where we were expecting to go in and sort of thought this was going to be an actual good movie, and neither of us really liked it. Bubble hates it way more than I do. This might be one of our biggest opposing viewpoints so far, but I would recommend this. I think a general audience would like this. I think a general audience is going to see her flailing with the red lights and like they're going to be like, "Oh, this is scary." Even though it's not scary.
I guess you're right. I think I agree with you. I think general audience would find this scary. The story is dumb, but the concept's there.
I think you could definitely cut way more from the beginning of this movie, specifically where, like, why have the scene where they get lost? Why have the scene where they pull in and then have to go talk to some random guy at the lake? Like, there's too much shit in the beginning when you could have been focused on developing the horror in the house. But that's all. I'm done.
I don't recommend this movie. I mean, whatever. If you want to see like cool underwater shots, like two people literally diving underwater, and they built this like set underwater. It's cool. It's dope. If you want to see that, watch this movie. Other than that, don't.
Yeah, I do recommend this movie. I don't think it's that good, but I mean, it's better than a lot of shit that we've seen. I would recommend this before Unwelcome or Death Valley. So I'm going to give this a recommendation, even though I rated it pretty low. And that's it. Take care, comb your hair.
And remember to mace in those ghost's face.
Bye.
Bye.